worked my way to, from right seat to left seat. I was Airbus 320 captain and also Airbus 330 captain, and finally a training manager for the airline. And then, somehow I wanted to dive into the business sector of airline industry. So I took different paths in my 30s, and I find my opportunity here at Wayman. That's why I joined Wayman about 3.5 years ago. We are really growing fast. We want to offer our students the best and highest quality of training. So today, I'd really like to, just share some of my thoughts, ideas with you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tony. So I failed to introduce myself. I'm Wayman Eddie, second generation manager here at Wayman Aviation Academy. For those that are joining us for the first time, we're the largest and longest running flight school in South Florida, over 40 aircrafts, instructors, and so on. But today, we're not going to be talking just about the flight school, right? So we're going to talk to Tony about how he got here and his thoughts on things. But really, we want to give you potential pilots really good ideas and what we're seeing in the industry. What we're seeing in the industry with all the changes that are happening. Is this a good time to start flight training? And the idea is the information you get from us today is not specific to our flight school, but we're going to try to be broad, whether you want to fly here or in California or in Peru or Europe. Hopefully what we talk about today will be beneficial for you, whether you fly with us or anywhere, right? In the end, our mission is to change lives through aviation, and we want to get as many people as possible to have that experience, to get out there and to learn how to fly. So what we're going to be talking about today, the first part of our webinar, I'd really like to get to know you a little bit, Tony, so kind of about your background. And then the second part, we're going to be taking questions and talking about those silver linings in aviation. But really quick, those of you that are in the Zoom or following us online on the Facebook, or even if you're watching the video on YouTube after the fact, in the chat, in the comments, if you could please put what country you're calling in from, you're chiming in from. That kind of lets us have a better idea of who we're talking to, and hopefully we can tailor some questions for you. So please go ahead in the chat. Let us know what country you're from.
So don't be shy to join the discussion and asking questions. I think that's the only way to gain the most out of it, right?
Absolutely. It's not every day that you get to sit down with an Airbus A330 captain with international experience, or myself, who's been in the flight school world, general aviation, for over a decade. So we'd love to hear what we can from you. And actually, we're getting quite a few people from India, which is excellent. I'm curious to see where people are from on Facebook as well. So first, I always like to start with the beginning, Tony. Like, how did you get interested in aviation? When did that first come up on your radar?
Well, good question. Unlike a lot of American pilots, I think most of them get started somehow through their connections, their family members, their friends, right? My family, on the other hand, don't really have any pilot. So I'm the first pilot in my families. How I got into this is because when I was in college, airlines came to recruit. Now, for some airlines around the world, they do have so-called cadet program, especially now in Asia. Some airlines do have that. So I was lucky enough to be given the opportunity to join an airline cadet program, and I took it. I was doing computer science before in college, and I honestly I never thought about this opportunity, but when the opportunity came to me, all of a sudden I knew this is something I want to do, so I took it. So that's how I got into the flight career, and I was sent by the airline to Central Florida 20-some years ago for my Ab Initio flight training. Well, so that's how I got started.
Before we jump there, so that's pretty interesting, right? So I'm also have a computer science background in university, and I find that a lot of people, go into that university track because that's what's laid out to you. You're in secondary school and high school, and they say, be an engineer, be a lawyer, be a doctor. When we were in school, we're not that far apart in age. The big thing, of course, were computers. So I went into computer science, and so did you. And so they like set up a table in the university, and they were recruiting for pilots?
Yes, yes, just like any other company recruiters, they come through the recruiting channel, they promote their program, basically, tell us why it's good to think about becoming a pilot, Yeah, it was just like that.
That's interesting. So we've had this conversation, which I'd love to share with everybody, is that while in the U.S. and throughout many parts of the world, there's already like a generation or two before us that have been flying. They learned how to fly in the war, in World War II or whatever it was, right? And now it kind of comes out generations. But for all intents and purposes, you're almost like the first generation or thereabouts of like civil airline pilots from China.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Yeah. The whole aviation industry is very young in many Asian countries like China. Yes. So I'm definitely one of the first generation of airline pilots.
Wow. So there wasn't a whole lot of flight training in China, right? Like here, our infrastructure of flight training is mostly retired pilots that have come back into the industry, things like that. But since you're kind of starting from new, so the option really is to go international. What was that like, going out international for the first time?
Well, at that time, like you said, because U.S. has a much more mature training system and it's more cost effective. As a matter of fact, it is the most cost effective, training program in the world. So many people, students come to U.S. for flight training for that reason. And the airlines see that benefit too. So, they really send their cadets to places where, they can fly most cost-effective programs. In most cases, that would be the U.S.
That makes sense. That makes sense. No, it's absolutely true because in many countries that I visited, there is some flight training. There's usually small operations with a handful of airplanes. Maybe half of those airplanes aren't flying. Or the opposite extreme, it's extremely expensive, like 100,000 euros to learn to fly in Europe, that kind of thing. So the U.S. training infrastructure is so far developed that we can fly for half of that, and go take it all the way to commercial pilot.
Yeah, it does take a lot for flight training. It's the whole ecosystem. It's airports, FBO, all the flight plan system. The fuel, everything. So it takes a lot of years to build that ecosystem that is a good fit for flight training. It took US over 100 years to be where we are right now.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. And like many countries that kind of have that gap, like India, because it never really had that aviation infrastructure, it's built out dramatically over the last 10, 20 years. And that same thing is, of course, we saw an explosion in aviation in China. So it's really interesting. Aviation, I've always said, is an international career by nature, right? Like you might be Colombian living in Colombia or living in Qatar or wherever you might be, but it's an international job. So you really go where the flying is, where the work is, where the airlines are booming. And China definitely has been one of the leaders in that for the last 10 years or more.
Yep, it is a very international job, and it speaks a very international language, which is English. So for your starting point, which is flight training, you really should be looking at the global market. Where should I go for my flight training? And now once you're done with your flight training, you will also be looking at the global job market. Where should I go for my work? But overall, it's a very global career.
You made a good point there about English, because so many of our students come in and their English isn't strong. How good would you say your English was when you first landed in Florida?
I guess I managed to survive the program, but yeah, it did take me a lot of efforts. In many countries, especially in Asia, kids start learning English when they're really young, like 5, 6, 7. I guess their biggest issue or challenge is not writing. It's spoken English, it's everyday English, because they lack the opportunity to practice that. So that is why if for non-native speakers, if you come to the US for flight training, you really get a lot of practice opportunities. It provides the environment for you to really enhance English, which is very, very important for your future career as a pilot.
It is. I believe some countries only allow cadets to go to English-speaking countries, right? Like it has to be a U.S., an Australia, Canada, something like that. Yeah, because that's true. You know, if you take off from Shanghai and land in Manila, we're trying to speak English in both locations, right? That's how we have a safe network.
Exactly.
So, of course, at the time you landed in Florida, which is one of the big flying areas of the United States, right? Tell us a little bit about your Ab Initio experience.
So that, again, 20 some years ago, right? When I first arrived in the U.S., you know, I would say everything is sort of shocking to me. You know, the language barrier, the cultural shock, everything, right? Even the weather. You know, it's very tropical weather. You know, different from where I used to live. But I think once we started the training, you don't really have much time to think about everything else, right? It's a very robust training system, program. You know, you really work 10, 12 hours a day, you know, study, training, you know, lesson by lesson. So it's a hard working year for me. It took me about 10 and a half months to finish my Zero to Hero program. It was quite a journey, but I think I was lucky because my English was okay. So I didn't really have the language barrier to start with, which is very important. So, but I do know for some individuals, you know, language could be a barrier. And of course, there's some other challenges as well. Everyone, I would say, everyone going through training program will have hiccup here and there, you know, difficulties here and there. It could be, for someone, it's language. For someone, it could be situation awareness. For someone, you know, very often could be just landing or flare. But everyone has difficulties and challenges at different stages. It's important to just remember you will always have challenges and you can always overcome them as long as you make the right effort.
Absolutely. 10 and a half months is an intensive program. We aim for 10 to 12 months, and that really means you are fully dedicated, fully engaged at the school every day, studying when you're not at the school. And that's the attitude really a student needs to be successful in flight training. You know, weekend warriors, it'll take years. So you graduated your Ab Initio program and you're already a cadet, right? You're a cadet program. So right into a regional and then a major.
Right. So I had a little bit different or unique opportunity back then. I was actually sent to one of the regional airlines here in Florida after I got my commercial license. It's also part of a program. Okay, so I became a first officer for one of the regional airlines here. It's now called the Silver Express, but back then it was called Gulfstream International. So I flew for that airline for almost 2 years before you know, going back to work for China Eastern, and that's a very good, excellent experience for me. Yeah, so I think I had almost 1,000 hours on Beech 1900, a 19-seater airplane.
Excellent. It's a great plane, the 1900. It's skinny too. Now, a lot of people, you know, aviation has its up and down cycles, and you've had a chance to see some of those up and down cycles. You know, we've been on a boom for the last 5 to 10 years, right, where a lot of our students were, you know, leaving us and going right into the right seat of an A320, you know, in Peru, in Panama, in Indonesia. They were leaving us and going right into that right seat program. But in your time, and in most pilots' times, you had to put in your dues, right? You had to work the regional, take those steps, fly smaller aircraft, charter, executive, kind of work your way up into the airlines. And I think that's something that kind of went to the wayside during this last boom pilot shortage. But there's a great value in that. Right? As being flight instructors, being regional airline pilots. And, you know, it's just like if you're a doctor, you have to do your 2 years of residency, right? You've got to work under other pilots and kind of earn your experience, earn that responsibility to be able to sit in the left seat. Absolutely. So you're working the majors, you're in that world, crossing the Atlantic, Pacific probably, right? And having really broad reaches. Is there anything you want to share about that? Any highlights from your time there and flying Airbus?
I mean, obviously there are two groups of pilots: Airbus versus Boeing, right? Obviously, I mean, you can probably see the picture hanging in my back, which is a Boeing 787, but I'm an Airbus guy. You know, the reason I love Airbus is simply because it has side stick, you know, for the flight control, which I really like. Okay, I mean, we can spend whole day arguing why this is good or not, but the experience I like to share with you as airline pilot really is it has a I mean, people go for flight career for many different motivation, many different reasons, right? For me, the most important thing I like really is, or I enjoy, is a very strong sense of purpose, strong sense of calling. It's very similar to being a doctor. You know, you have to save hundreds of lives using your knowledge, experience, skills, and making the right call during tough time. Like adverse weather, things like that, or you have mechanical issues with the airplane. So that's something I really like. And then for anyone who like to start your flight training, aiming for becoming an airline pilot or professional pilot, this is a sort of mindset you should have from the very beginning, is to have that sense of purpose, why you want to become a pilot.
Now, I feel like you've brought that sense of purpose into the flight school, right? Because you have this great experience. You've got the background from, from your business degree, so you've got a background with that as well, which we haven't touched on yet. And you're responsible not just for the 100, 200 passengers you have with you, but you're responsible for the students, the instructors, the staff that are on this ship, Wayman Aviation Academy. Do you see some similarities, some relations there?
Definitely, yeah. We're really we're the starting point for new generation of pilots. So a lot of experience I have gained from my previous pilot career can be used here. Is that strong sense of purpose, right? Our mission is to provide the highest quality of training to future pilots. That's why we're doing everything we could to give our students the best training quality. And for employees and staff, and many of them are pilots, all our flying instructors, they're pilots. Our maintenance, believe it or not, most of them are pilots. So we share very similar mindset, which is that strong sense of purpose. Safety for every single pilot is always the top priority. And we want to, set up the mindset, for our students from day one.
That's very important, because at flight school, you have that primacy. You're setting the first foundations, the cornerstones, not just of the skills of being able to control an aircraft, fly and land, but the cornerstone of professionalism, right? There's a reason why we're all in uniform. Our instructors and students all wear the pilot whites with their epaulets. It's establishing that primacy, like I said, whether it's safety or professionalism, is very important. And I think your professionalism that you've brought from the airlines, from your business background, I think has really helped take that next step. Flight Academy. Yeah. So now that we've gotten to know you a little bit, I imagine you've been with the flight school now for years. I imagine it's more challenging than look from the outside. Or do you think it's about what you expected?
What do you mean by that?
Well, it's a different kind of flight, right? When you take off on an airplane, you take off, you have a destination, you land, right, and then you reset. But the flight school, flying a business, it's what Simon Sinek calls an infinite game, right? The purpose is not just to land, but it's to keep flying. So it's a little bit of a different mindset. Do you think that directing a flight school is more challenging than you thought originally?
I would say there are a lot of similarities. Being a good pilot, very importantly, you have to what we say is be a pilot by book, fly by book, right? So it doesn't. So managing an airplane or a team of crew, you have to follow all the rules and regulations. That's the most important thing about being a safe pilot. Now, running a flight school is highly similar, right? We are under FAA supervision. We have to follow all the rules. Safety-wise, operation-wise, that's a very alike mindset as a manager or for the operation. But I would say being, managing a flight school takes a little bit more creativity because it is a business. It is, nothing is just, doesn't change or stay the same forever. So you have to have that mindset of being creative to adapt into the evolving situation, which is, every day, every week, every month. So that might be the biggest difference between managing the two operations.
You said a key word there that I want to build on, adaptability, right? Pilots prepare extensively for any possible situation so that when it confronts you, you're adaptable, right? You can flex with the situation. And I think we've done quite a bit of it, right? So I'm sure what's on everyone's minds is, now in the face of the COVID pandemic, worldwide, how is the flight school adapting to that environment?
Flight school is part of the aviation world, which is, I would say, very vulnerable. Unlike many other industries, aviation industry is very vulnerable to many things. Oil change, climate change, even some region changes in some countries or areas. So you just have to be sensitive enough to those changes and all the potential impacts that might bring to your company, and always be prepared for those changes. So I always say, aim for speed over elegance. That makes a lot of sense for aviation industry because you just cannot afford having a very delayed business change or having a delayed new adaptation into the situation based on those changes. So yes, it does require you to have a very adaptive mindset and be sensitive to all the potential impact from those changes. Again, we're in a very vulnerable industry.
Well, it's always cyclical, whenever there's an economic turmoil like there was in the 90s, deregulation in the 80s, at least in the US. The 9/11 attacks had a huge impact on aviation back at the beginning of the 2000s. So aviation is cyclical. You're absolutely right. Now, I was actually talking to somebody recently that I felt very prepared, and the Academy, I think, was very prepared, mostly because you established yourself as an expert on this spreading a pandemic right at the beginning, right? Being that it had its roots in China, you were aware of what was going on there. And I remember you giving us weekly briefings right at the beginning of this, like keeping an eye out for it. I know that was definitely beneficial to me, getting those briefings. And it's been beneficial to the school. It seems like everyone at this point is like, everyone thinks they're a COVID expert, right? But I would say that you have definitely been on top of it. And I know your wife has a background in biology and things like that. I wouldn't say you saw it coming, but you definitely called a few things that everybody else wasn't. What has your experience been specifically now with this COVID and now the last 5 months of the world being through this?
I mean, yeah, this is such an unprecedented challenge to the whole world. We're just a very tiny part of it, right? And to us, I think the most important thing is really to provide the safest learning and working environment to our students and employees. I think we did something very right in time. I think we're one of the first group of US companies to roll out our own company COVID-19 guidance and protocols. And we have been updating those policies as pandemic evolves. Just to share with our audience today, just to name some of the things we're doing, which I think is very important. Start from the very beginning, we mandate temperature check, right? Everyone comes into our building, have to do that. And very soon we mandate facial cover. Basically, you have to wear a mask coming to Wayman, right? We do facility and fleet sanitizing. So after each flight, our ramp technician will go into the airplane. They will fully sanitize the cockpit after each flight, right? And we have our own company contact tracing system. We have designated staff working on that. So it doesn't matter what the local government is doing. We have own company contact tracing. So everything has been proved very successful, right? And we even provide our students, if there's a need, a quarantine housing. So that way they don't need to worry about anything, and the rest of student body don't need to worry about anything. And we, we have a full-time scheduler, flight scheduler, working on staggering flight schedule, right? So you don't have to come to school in a big crowd, in a big group. We try to stagger those flight schedules. So at any given time, if you show up at Wayman, you don't see many other pilots because of that, right? So all those things we have been doing have been proven very, very successful. We only have a handful of students that are positive, within the past 5 months. That is incredible because everything we have been doing, and we just, we've kept educating our students what to do, how to do as things evolve. So yeah, I'm pretty comfortable. We are probably one of the best in terms of dealing with, with this pandemic.
You have been. I think you really kept the school at the front of it, the academy, because we were able to keep flying almost without any serious stops. I think it was just a handful of days, early on where, citywide, countywide, statewide, everyone's like, let's take a moment and figure out what's going on, right? But, I think it's through that leadership, through the contact tracing, the being proactive, the COVID policy, that we've been able to keep flying. And because of that, there's actually been a lot of silver linings, right? A lot of benefits to our students that are here in the school. They've been able to take advantage of more of available resources, of instructors. We've got students finishing in record times right now, which is wonderful. Do you see those silver linings? Like, what do you think? Have students been taking advantage of it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, to our current students, because we never stop our operations, right? And, in the entire airspace, I would say, in the state of Florida, because of this dynamic, flights have been reduced. That means our students have more resources, right? The sky is more open to them, all right? It's less congested. So they're really taking advantage of that. So their completion is even better, it's faster. So that's to our current students. And also I think a lot of people are asking this, even the pandemic, given so many airline pilots are being furloughed, what is really the job projection down the road, a year from now, 2 years from now? Should we really start flight training? I did get a lot of questions like that. I think I just want to share.
Yeah. That's an excellent question, actually. And actually, for anyone that's watching, those of you in the Zoom, I see a question coming in. For anyone on the Facebook, go ahead and put your questions in. We've got Guillen on the Facebook group taking questions so that we can, answer those live. So please feel free to put them through. And that was one of the first questions that I saw was airline projections, right? We've looked at some airline numbers. We discussed them with Captain Petrovich on our last episode. But I think you have more of an international viewpoint, right? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I do, attend a lot of conferences, even it's virtual Zoom meetings, and I've been exchanging information with a lot of industry experts. So I firmly see silver linings, and it has a lot to do again with the job market projection, right? There's no question. We all had a consent about pilot shortage pre-COVID-19. I think no one ever doubt that, right? That shortage comes from two parts, really. One is industry growth, another is pilot retirement, right? I think most people now are saying, it will probably take 2 years for the airline industry to fully recover. okay? So if this pandemic started, let's say January 2020 this year, so by January 2022, which is 2 years from January 2020, things will go back to where they were in January 2020. And under that assumption, you know, let's say the world was short of 100,000 pilots in January 2020. So the world will be short of the same 100,000 pilots in January 2022, even with all the furlough pilots returning to work. And because thousands of pilots will be retiring during those 2 years, the actual shortage will be even greater, right? So we have to train enough new pilots and get them ready for airline jobs during these 2 years to avoid greater pilot shortage in 2022. And remember, it takes 2 to 3 years for a starter to become a airline-ready pilots, right? You know, a lot of airline require 1,500 hours. So this is why I really think now is the best time to start a flight training, you know, if you want to become a professional pilot. And I can tell you, I'm not the only one seeing this. Other industry experts see this, even, you know, student loan bankers see this. And believe it or not, many parents and students see this too. And even on top of that, you know, many schools, given the situation, including Wayman, right, we're offering promotions and discounts, which makes it even better for students. So I really think now is the best time to start flight training.
And we'll go into that in a moment, but you said something interesting there. So what you're saying really is that the great pause, as many people have been calling it, right, this 1.5 to 2 years is going to take the airline to recover, is almost like a catch-up opportunity for the airline and the pilot shortage. It's a catch-up opportunity. And exactly. When we get there, you know, there's still going to be those needs to recover from retiring pilots. In fact, it's even accelerated. So I had this conversation just a few weeks ago. United has, you know, retired or voluntary retirements for many, many pilots. It's happening around the world, many voluntary retirements for pilots. So it's actually accelerating that issue, right? So I think that's part of what's going to allow the request for jobs to kind of match the demand, right? And students coming in, like you said, it usually takes 18 months to 2 years, you know, at least a year to get your certificates, usually a year to 18 months, and then usually you build experience on top of that. You know, whether it's charters or becoming a flight instructor or executive travel, regionals. So there's a lot of ways to build experience usually before you get into those airlines. So you mentioned deals. Now, we just put out an article, I think it might have even been as soon as yesterday, which was finding flight training deals during the downturn, right? And I kind of want to get your viewpoint on these because I thought it was right on point, and I'll make sure to share a link to this in the notes. In fact, I'll put it into the Zoom for right now, and we can share it into the Facebook comments if you're reading those, if you're watching us on Facebook Live. And for those of you also watching us on Facebook Live, put the country you're in so that we know who we're speaking with. So take advantage of all the deals. Like you said, there's capacity now, right? Like we were very, I wouldn't say we were tight at capacity, but we like many academies, were very selective of our students coming in because, you know, we have X amount of resources and X amount of instructors. And so you don't want to have 1,000 students come in if you can't fly every single one of them and reach your goals. But most academies, not just us, you know, academies in Texas and California and all over, now we have a little bit more flexibility to take on students. So it might be the right time for people to reach out and look for those deals, right? Capacity is a big one. And not just internationally, but also locally, right? There's a lot of local students. You know, we're here in South Florida, huge major city, one of the largest in the country, and outside of Miami, between Miami and Fort Lauderdale. And even the local flight schools, they, you know, the weekend warriors might be busy right now, or maybe they've lost their funding to fly, or things like that. So if you find yourself in the fortunate position of having the funding to do it, you know, now's a great time to start.
Definitely. I see some questions coming in. Maybe we should take a quick pause and answer those questions.
Sure, we can address some of these questions.
Right.
So we have a captain on the Zoom asking us He does instruction here in South Florida, A320 captain, and he wants to know about our program with Miami-Dade College, right? So very proud of this program. We've been Miami-Dade College's flight training partner for 8 years now. This is our eighth year and going for a renewal. So yes, we do plan to extend that relationship with Miami-Dade College. And that's something I'm seeing a lot right now too. Our students, many of them are finishing their programs and they're saying, well, right now is not the time to jump into the airline industry. So why not take the collegiate route, right? Our flight training partners, Miami-Dade College and Embry-Riddle, or if you're a U.S. resident citizen, Liberty University, they all give you credits for your degrees, for your pilot licenses. So let's say you jump in with Miami-Dade College, you basically skip the first better part of a year. They give you those credits because you already have your licenses. And then you end up getting a degree out of it. And while you're on that university partner with us, many of them learn to fly with us, continue on to be instructors and start building their flight time, their flight experience. Would you like to talk about some of our flight instructors that are doing that?
Yes, we have at least, I would say, 4 or 5 that I know of that are doing this, taking advantage of this. It's really great. And now, very few flight schools can offer this, right? You have to be sort of part of a big college to be able to offer this. And you know, Wayman here, we can do it. And also, I'm looking at the following questions. So yes, we do offer jobs, flight instructor jobs to our students. We actually prefer to hire our students because we know them better and they know us better, right? And also asking about the discount. So right now we're offering 3 months of free housing, right? And 1 year of healthcare for international students. So it's really a great opportunity for you to take advantage of that. Oh, by the way, also we're giving a discount on pricing. Basically, instead of charging you for 2020 rates, we're charging the old 2019 rates. That's also a big promotion. And for English, yes, every international student, you have to do a quick English evaluation or proficiency test with our partner, a third-party company. It's relatively fair and quick, So, but it's not it's customized for pilots only. Okay, it's different from those generic English tests, right?
Yeah, let's step through those one at a time. And I thought you said some very important stuff there. So to build on that English one, you do need to speak English at an intermediate to advanced level. So ICAO has a level 1 to 6, where 1 is no hablo inglés, I don't speak in English, I don't understand anything, right? And a 6 is fluent English. So English is my second language. I know English is Tony's second language. So, it's through experience and use and education that our English has, gotten to the point where we would be considered a level 6. But in order to start flying, you're supposed to have a level 4. So with the level 4 is advanced intermediate. So if you're just below that, like you can speak English, I can understand you, you can understand me, you can understand what we're talking about today, right? That means that you're probably an intermediate English, right? So what this is usually, I think it's a WhatsApp or a Skype interview. It's usually a little conversation, 5 to 10 minutes. It's not like a TOEFL written exam, because most students, like Tony was saying, internationally, most students can write and read English really well. It's using it, it's speaking it, right? Which is where I think the interview is really handy. And it's not us, it's a third party that does it for us so they can be impartial, right? Because I'd love to have all of you, but this other party allows us to say, yes, your English is good, come on in, or hey, maybe you should take another English class at home before you come to us. Right, so the English is probably a big indicator of being a successful student with us. Now, taking another step back, the discounts. So Tony, you said, and these are big because these are the ones that we're offering. But if you look at any flight training in the world right now, there usually aren't very many discounts. We consider ourselves a premier school, a great value for what we do. Captain Black in the chat says that we have a very good reputation in the flight training industry. Thank you very much. Yes, 33 years we've been here in South Florida. Wayman is, we're, like I said, the longest and largest running flight school here in South Florida. So when we offer discounts, that just kind of shows you that we have that capacity to bring on students. So this is what we're offering. But if you go to any flight school, they're probably offering something for you right now because they want to keep the airplanes flying. They themselves want to keep flying. So for our international students, we're offering a year of free healthcare. Now that's, considering the situation, I think that's a critical one, because if I was sending my son to go study somewhere, I want to make sure that should he happen to get sick, and I hope not, that he's taken care of, that he can go visit a doctor, he can get his medications, whatever it is, so he gets better. And the U.S. has a paid healthcare system. So the school is basically saying, we're gonna support our students that are coming in, and that 1 year of healthcare is included for our international students. That's critical. Along with our COVID policies, that's really how we keep our students, healthy and making progress. The other two are also exceptional. At the beginning of this year, we were in the process of rolling out 2020 rates, right? Or 2020 rates, which was a slight increase. Everything's getting more expensive. Fuel is getting more expensive. Instructors need to get paid well. Maintenance takes time and costs money. So we were raising our prices. And as soon as things hit, right, like February, March, we said, well, wait a second. I think it's better that, we don't want to burden our incoming students, the ones that are planning to be here. So we rolled back to our 2019 pricing. And Tony, I got to say, I think that was a brilliant idea, because I think finances is definitely on everyone's mind, right?
Right. So those decisions or strategies that we took, it really is based on our interaction and conversation with our students, partners, parents. This pandemic is global, right? It's really impacting virtually every single family. So the students, they're having financial difficulties. So we're thinking, how can we help, right? And we know the world will need more pilots in 2 years, and how can we help? So offering the free health care, that's very, very important. So that's really directly addressing the pandemic situation. And also we put a hold on the new price, which to at this point a slight increase, is to support those families who are dealing with the financial difficulties. So we like to minimize the impact caused by the pandemic. So that's everything that we're doing to specifically addressing this pandemic. And hopefully that will be a win-win, to school and our students.
And that's no small feat. That maintaining 2019 pricing translated into a 10% savings, $5,000 in the pocket of every student that started this year, right? And we are still open to admissions. There's several countries whose embassies have reopened, and every week we're hearing of more embassies reopening. So if you are interested in learning to fly with us, visit our website, wayman.net, or our hashtag #FlyWayman. You'll find us right away. And right on the first page, there's a link so you can start talking to admissions, see if you have what you need to get started, what the process is like. We're authorized by the U.S. Department to issue I-20s or student visas, for M1 student visas. So we're sending them out there. We have students waiting for their embassies to open so they can come in and take advantage of this, right? And the one that we didn't even touch on was the housing. So housing is one that we're doing and that I've seen around the industry quite a bit. What we're trying to make sure is that when students arrive here, first of all, it's a quarantine house, right? Part of new international travel is that there's a quarantine. We kind of have to get used to it, right? To make sure that everyone that's arriving to us, doesn't have anything that can spread. So we're offering that free rent, and we've even extended it to 3 months, right? So that people can get settled in. Now, if you choose to stay with our housing, we have beautiful apartments. I think about 20 odd apartments right here within 3 miles, about 4 to 5 kilometers of the base. So most of our students walk and bike and things like that. But then if you want to go out and find your own apartment after 3 months, you at least already know where you are. You're not signing a lease from 1,000 miles away, hoping that it's a good apartment. And of course, I would stay in any one of apartments. I think they're beautiful. So, thinking as a parent, and I'm a parent of 2 boys. I know, Tony, you're a parent as well. You want to make sure that your child is healthy, that they have a roof over their bed, and that your investment is well taken care of, right? By finding a good value. And so I find a lot of schools that give you a very cheap price. They give you the lowest price possible, that there's really not a value there, because in aviation, you really get what you pay for, right? You want something like us with a hangar full of great mechanics, keeping everything flying, keeping everything safe. And so when you're putting your son, your daughter, or yourself into aviation, you really want to make sure that the quality of their aircraft and their maintenance is impeccable. I know you spent a lot of time on that.
Yep.
What do you think about our maintenance program and how we're
Right.
doing
So,
it? You spearheaded the SMS.
yeah. So I think it's very, very important for students to know when you are searching for a good flight school for your training. Some key things you have to understand about those candidate schools, and one of those is maintenance. You just have to understand how are they doing their maintenance. Many flight schools, they don't have their own maintenance. They outsource to other companies. That might be a potential issue for you to understand, right? So I think today we're really trying to share the insightful information with you about flight training, about job projection, and also very importantly, which might be the most important thing for you to understand, is flight school selection. Which flight school should I select? Well, first thing you have to do is you have to search more flight schools. Don't just listen to one webinar, right? Of course I want you to all come to Wayman, but just to be fair, you have to search for more flight schools, listen to more webinars to understand more information from different flight schools, right? So I'll probably give you my understanding of how I should be looking at flight schools. There's so many flight schools out there, but they can all be summarized and put into two major different categories. Okay, the first type or first category is really college or academy. Don't be fooled by the name of the school. It doesn't matter how they call them. Academy, college, the only way to tell is, are they accredited? Okay, for those of you who are not familiar with the US accreditation, essentially what it means is the flight school certified by education department of the country. Okay, so if that's accredited, that means it's academy, college, university, that is type 1 or category 1 of flight schools. And for that category, we have Embry-Riddle, we have many large universities, and also Wayman. We are also in that category as a major academy being accredited by the U.S. Education Department, right? And so that's the first thing, right? And second category is just 95% of other flight schools which are not accredited. Some are big, some are small. And as a student looking for a flight school, I think you should look for the three most important factors. Number one is quality, right? When it comes to quality, a couple things you can look at. The first thing really is the history of the flight school. If it's a new school with only 2-3 years of history or 20-30 years of history, that can tell you a lot about the flight school, right? And also, like I said, accreditation. That can tell you, is this a category 1 or category 2 flight school? And we mentioned maintenance. That is so important, right? Good flight school, or all the category 1 flight school, they all have their own in-house maintenance. Wayman is also, we not only have our in-house maintenance, we have a FA 145 certified repair station, which is probably the highest standard for any in-house maintenance. And also, does the school have a safety management system, which is, just from the name, you can tell it's all about safety, right? So that's the quality side. So when you are searching for flight schools, you have to look at those factors, understand those factors. The number two most important factor is completion. What does it mean? How long does it take you to complete your training? Of course, that's important, right? You don't want to spend, take any program that take you for more than 14 months. That is not a good program, right? That's too long. That means more cost. That means you're missing potential future opportunities in the job market, right? So how should you know the school has good completion or bad completion? A couple of things you have to look at, right? The number one thing is, well, first of all, their fleet size. How many airplanes? That's the major training resources you will have to use to get a good completion, right? A big school should have at least 20 airplanes, right? And also a very, very important number you have to ask flight school. What is your instructor-student ratio? Okay, that means how much time you get from your instructor. That is a key factor to your completion, right? Like Wayman, our ratio is 1:5. So on average, every instructor should not have more than 5 students. It is way below industry average. Many flight school they have 1:8, 1:10, 1:12. Also, very importantly, you need to see, does the flight school provide supporting departments? Because completion means a lot of things, maybe not just training. It could be non-training things, right? So ask the school, do you have supporting departments? Like, do you have something called, like the training department, training standardization department, or student affairs department? Those training departments, supporting staff, they can provide you everything you need to have a good completion, a quick completion. Of course, the last thing is cost. Now, here's the tricky part. For cost, never believe what the schools are telling you, okay? You have to do your own calculation, okay? So it's very easy. Just understand, it doesn't matter where you go. If you're doing from zero to commercial, for most people, the majority of students, you will have to fly between, let's say, 240 hours and 260 hours, okay, regardless of which flight school you choose. Okay, that's the majority of students, the hours they require to get the license. Okay, so knowing that, okay, you just get the airplane rental rate, okay, how much per hour for this airplane, and how much per hour for the instructor cost. And then you can calculate the true cost, right? Don't believe what flight schools are saying. Just always do your own calculation, and always remember asking for additional fees. Okay, so it's always tuition plus fees, and then you will figure out the real cost on your own. So those are the important factors I think you should all know, and that's something I would like to share with you. You don't necessarily need to come to Wayman, but regardless of which flight school you choose, you have to understand and ask for those questions.
That's excellent. So we're kind of coming to the end of our hour, but I just have to echo, everything you said. The process of choosing a school is very important. Also think about where you're going to be living in this place for 2 years, right? So do you want to live in the middle of, Oklahoma, like middle of, a barren area? Or would you like to live closer to a metropolitan area where you can get, maybe some food from home that has population that you live? That's one of the things I love about South Florida. Not only the weather, that's another thing to consider where you're going to live. Is the weather going to allow you to fly every day? If you're, learning to fly up in Canada, it's beautiful, for about 5 to 6 months of the year, but the rest is very cold. And somebody that comes from a tropical climate like myself, I probably wouldn't be comfortable up there. It's one of the reasons I'm here in Florida, right? So I think the weather, the location, and that also becomes your network, right? When you come from when you go to a tier 1 school, like you were saying, an accredited university or academy, you also have the network of that academy. For example, we have 6 airline partners, 3 university partners, and our pilots, 33 years of pilots, are out flying at just about every airline you can think of, right? So if you say you want to fly at LATAM or Air India or Singapore Airlines, I can probably get you in contact with somebody that's flying there that used to fly with us. So the network is, I think, an interesting choice that people often overlook when they choose their flight schools. Any closing words, any parting advice?
Well, I would just say, don't be scared away by the pandemic. Seek for different opinions from industry experts and understanding why now is actually the best time to start your flight career. Very, very importantly, I want to make sure you understand what it takes to find a fit flight school for yourself. Okay, those are the lessons learned by many, previous students, and something I would like to share with you. Regardless, you want to come to Wayman or not, just remember those key factors to consider when it comes to flight school selection. And of course, I do look forward to hopefully one day seeing you here at Wayman. And don't hesitate to reach out to us for any questions. Again, regardless, which school you might want to go to, we're here to help you.
Absolutely. Like I said, our mission is to change lives through aviation. The fact that you're watching us today tells me that you're passionate about aviation. So go talk to a flight school. Reach out to us. Reach out to the flight school in your community. Go for a discovery flight, an introductory flight, just for a quick flight and see if you like it. I'm really glad for everyone that joined us today, and we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar from Wayman Aviation.